A big issue with dental practices and most all small business is, how do I hire employees? How do I fire employees? How do I do these things correctly without running afoul of all the rules and regs that the government has in place? So what we're able to do is step in from that human capital side and provide a complete Fortune 50 benefit plan, a Fortune 50 HR department, a Fortune 50 style operation that a small business could never afford to do on their own.
What are some of the ways that Empower HR would impact the hiring process?
Well, from a hiring standpoint, when you hire your first employee, your whole life changes. So the dentist already has employees in place. But what we're able to do is, if there is turnover issues, is how do they need to go about hiring? Well, the first thing you need to do is make sure you have an employee handbook and a job description that are compliant and up to date. And if you don't, you put yourself in tremendous liabilities of potentially doing things the wrong way. The other thing is, if they don't have the job descriptions in place, is how are they to know, their current employees, to know that they're doing the right things, the things that are part of their job. But probably the biggest issue that most every business has, and specifically the dental practice side, is that they're not sure what they can and can't say in an interview, and they just have it as a conversation. Well, the problem is, if you've never been trained, and training is key there, and continuing training, is that you start asking the wrong questions purely by accident. Not doing anything to be overt and break the law, but you just don't know. And when it comes to compliance in any form, what you don't know will hurt you. So conversations arise where they ask, do you have a car? Well, that's actually illegal. You can't ask somebody if they have a car. You can ask them, do you have the ability to get to work on Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or whatever it is, and it doesn't matter to you whether they take a cab or a bus or have their own car, as long as they're able to get there. That's all you can actually ask. You can't ask about their children. You can't ask if they have children. You can't ask, any question that you would typically think of as being fairly personal. You're not allowed to ask. And the problem is, most people just want to have a conversation. So when you start to have some of those conversations in place, people start to give you more information than you're probably supposed to know. So what happens is, most business owners assume, if somebody says to me, I have children, and you start to ask, oh really, how old are they, or where do they go to school, or what church do you go to, their typical assumption is the prospective employee opened the door. Somebody will walk through the door. It's not a courtroom where you're able to, they open up and start through questioning. If they offer information that they're not supposed to have, you're supposed to just forget you ever heard it and continue on. If they bring up stuff and further into the conversation, again, ignore what you heard. You cannot delve further into some of the information. And it also goes for employees. Most times when you're hiring somebody, you want them to meet your team, and you want to make sure there's a camaraderie, that people are able to work together. What typically happens then is, you want this prospective employee to go and meet your team. Well, your employees are also under the same rules and regs you are. So they start asking questions, start talking about church or whatever, and next thing you know, every law's been broken on what you can and can't say, only again because they're just trying to talk and have a conversation. So part of our hiring is, we make sure we train the employees, we make sure we train the dentist what you can and can't say. Secondly is, when you make a decision of, this is the person I want to hire, you need to do background checks and drug screening.
Y'all do that?
We do all of that. The key is to make sure you know everything about them, and it's part of the due diligence process. You wouldn't buy a practice without doing full due diligence on it. The same thing, you shouldn't hire an employee without doing full due diligence on them. They may have had a background of assault, and they come in, you hire them, they come in, they assault one of your employees, you're now liable for that. And the answer from a court standpoint is, you should have known. Had you exercised proper due diligence, you'd have never hired that person if you found out they have a background of assaulting other co-workers or anybody else. So it's all part of that process of making sure you're doing correct due diligence. We handle all of those aspects for you.
Nice.
The other part, and nobody likes it, as I've often said, is, if anybody loves to fire an employee, they're a sadist. But inevitably that happens. And when you have to let somebody go, you want to make sure you've done it the right way. You want to make sure you've documented and made sure that if you're letting them go, it's justified, you've tried to work with that employee, you tried to make things better to keep that employee, but at a certain point, you've got to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, another liability for a dental practice is if you don't let them go correctly, not only can you be sued by them because nobody's ever been fired for their own fault, they always have to find somebody else's fault, and they typically say, well, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm going to sue my past employer. But also, if they're not eligible for unemployment because you let them go with cause, well, what do? How do you fight those unemployment claims? Part of what we also offer for our clients is the ability to have us fight their unemployment claims. We help them let the employee go compliantly. We help put together the plan of separation notices, and then also, if indeed you had to let them go with cause, we fight those unemployment claims because we've got those experts in those areas. So there's a lot of compliance areas that most businesses, and specifically dental practices, never think about. They don't think about what they can and can't do in these areas.
So that's truly a situation where the doctor could be in the right, but if they don't handle it correctly, they could be the one paying the price.
Exactly, and we all know that when you have to pay the price, it's not a low price.
Right.
The payments you have to pay are in addition to the lawyer's fees, and even if you've done everything right, they can still sue you. The key there is that you document, and then lastly is let the experts handle everything for you. We do that. We document it.
Mm-hmm.
We then help you let that person go. We then, if they do decide to sue, part of our program includes employee practices liability insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is it's insurance most businesses don't even think about, but it covers our client companies for any kind of employee tort. And tort is just another word for wrong.
Uh-huh.
So if you're sued for wrongful termination or sexual harassment or hostile work environment or any of those types of things, you're covered with us because we have this insurance in place, up to $1 million a year, that covers you for any kind of employee tort. So, as I mentioned, we're all living in a right-to-work state. We also live in a right-to-sue state. And even if you do everything correctly, you can still be sued. So, God forbid that happens, this insurance helps you cover also the legal aspects of fighting the claim. And if, for some strange reason, you lose, and let me reiterate a point I'd like to make, 71% of the time, juries find for the plaintiff.
Wow.
Because they've all worked for somebody they figured has messed with them in the past. So it's like,
Payback
the man,
time?
exactly, the man's out to get me. So inevitably they go, yeah, I've had that happen to me too, and it's probably happened here, so you lose. The average employee tort is around $500,000 of actual fine for doing something wrong.
Wow.
There's another $100,000 plus to litigate, so it's a $600,000 claim ultimately. No small business can handle that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our case, they're covered. There's a small deductible of $15,000. Everything else up to $1 million is covered. So we help keep you compliant. We help do the employee handbooks and job descriptions. We help you if you have to let people go. We help you when you're hiring those folks. And really, from the day you hire them to the day you have to fire them, God forbid, we're there to work with you all in between as well. So we're there to be your champion in making sure you're staying compliant. You're doing the stuff that, quite frankly, nobody really thinks about when they go into business.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever starts their business and says, I can't wait to fire my first employee.
Right.
I can't wait for that first sexual harassment claim. But in our case, we make sure you think about it. We help you do those right things. And if, God forbid, something does happen, we're there to help you. We're standing there beside you, and we've got insurance to make sure that not only are we helping you, but so too are you covered in the off chance you actually lose the claim.